Welcome back, everybody. You're watching Yesteryear TV, and these are the top best horror films of 1969. We've already completed the 30s, the 40s, the 50s, and now we're on to the end of the 60s. These are the best horror films that scared us all in 1969. Let's see what horror films were out in 1969. Horror House. Horror, mystery, and thriller. Teenagers gathered in an old mansion are being murdered one by one. The survivors must discover who among them is the killer before he finishes off everybody. Horror House. Again, in 1969, we have another Santo movie, Santo and the Border of Terror. I love it. Santo runs into a mad doctor, turning immigrants into mind-controlled zombie slaves. Santo and the Border of Terror. Action, adventure, crime, and horror. Every Santo movie is horror. I love it. Look at this. Santo and the Treasure of Dracula. Action, adventure, fantasy, and horror. Mexican wrestler El Santo invents a time machine. After somebody uses the machine to find the hidden location of Dracula's treasure, El Santo must hunt down the vampire. See, these are awesome horror films that were made in Mexico. The Valley of Guanji. A cowboy named Tuck seeks fame and fortune by capturing an Allosaurus living in a Mexican valley and putting it into the Wild West show. Action, adventure, and family. And horror. The Valley of Guanji. Blood of Dracula's Castle. Horror. Count Dracula and his wife capture beautifully young women and chain them in their dungeon to be used when they need to satisfy their thirst for blood. Blood of Dracula's Castle will not disappoint. Screams, kills. Blue Demon y las Invasoras. Again, another Mexican wrestler wearing a blue mask. Blue Demon, Blue Demon, must battle against a group of alien women looking to kidnap men from planet Earth. Again, everything about these movies are great. Horror films in Mexico. Diabolical Pact. A crazed doctor performs gruesome experiments in his search for a youth serum. Diabolical Pact. Horror, sci-fi, and thriller. This movie is good. Cheesy, but good. Next thing we have is Dracula, the Dirty Old Man. Yes, how many Dracula films do we have? Comedy and horror. Dracula enslaves Dr. Irving Jekyll, turning him into the lycanthropic Jekyll Man, demanding that he lure female blood donors to his LA cabin retreat. Dracula, the Dirty Old Man. Eye of the Cat. A man and his girlfriend plan to rob the mansion of the man's eccentric but wealthy aunt. However, the aunt keeps dozens of cats in her home, and the man is deathly afraid of cats. Eye of the Cat. Fangs of the Living Dead. Comedy, drama, and horror. A beautiful virgin inherits a castle, but when she arrives at it, she finds that the inhabitants include a strange nobleman and a bevy of beautiful women she suspects may be vampires. Fangs of the Living Dead. Frankenstein must be destroyed. Baron Frankenstein, with the aid of a young doctor and his fiancée, kidnaps the mentally sick Dr. Brandt in order to perform the first brain transplant operation. Frankenstein must be destroyed. Starring Peter Cushing. Madame Death. Horror, mystery, and sci-fi. A mad scientist teams with an evil, disfigured woman to kidnap and operate on young women to make her look beautiful again. So they're going to kidnap and kill these beautiful women and take their face. Night after night after night. Crime, drama, and horror. A Jack the Ripper type serial killer is loose in London. Suspicion falls on a transvestite judge. Look at this. They already have transvestites in 1969. Night after night after night. Night of bloody horror. Wesley goes out on a killing spree while experiencing the nightmares of his brother, who was murdered 13 years ago. Night of Bloody Horror. Look at that awesome poster that was done in 1969. This movie is good. Night of the Bloody Apes. Crime, drama, and horror. A doctor tries to save his son's life through a complicated heart transplant operation, the involuntary donor being a gorilla. Eventually, the young man turns into a violent hybrid beast. Nightmare in Wax. Horror. The disfigured curator of a wax museum murders his enemies and then uses their bodies as exhibits in his museum. I love this. He kills his enemies and then turns them into wax figurines in his museum. That's a great movie. Santo and the Treasure of Dracula. Mexican wrestler El Santo invents a time machine. After somebody uses the machine to find the hidden location of Dracula's treasure, El Santo must hunt down the vampire. Santo and the Treasure of Dracula. Next up we have is Scream Baby Scream. A psycho artist kidnaps models and slices up their faces to create new mutant models. Scream Baby Scream. Now this is already sick and deranged, so some executive producer and studio had the green light for this movie. The Body Stealers. Remember the Body Snatchers? This is the Body Stealers. In Britain, bodies of NATO paratroopers are being snatched during routine jumps by a mysterious red beam of alien origin. The Body Stealers. Horror, mystery, and sci-fi. The Mummy and the Curse of the Jackals. A mummy battles a jackal man in Las Vegas. The Mummy and the Curse of the Jackals. Horror. If you like Las Vegas, you're going to love this movie. Now, this movie in Spanish is called Las Vampiras, or the female vampires, the women vampires. A wrestler, Mil Máscaras, another Mexican movie with a wrestler, tries to break up a covey of vampires led by the king of vampires, Caradine. So this is another Mexican wrestler called Mil Máscaras in Las Vampiras. Lastly, Whatever Happened to Aunt Alice. An aging widow hides a deadly secret which she will do anything to keep buried. Whatever Happened to Aunt Alice. Crime, drama, mystery, and horror. Those were the horror films that scared us all in 1969. Those were the best horror films that were released in 1969. Do you remember any of these movies? Let me know in the comments below. I love them all. I've seen most of them. And by most, I mean like maybe 96% of them. Because I have all these movies. But I just wanted to touch with you that these were the best movies of 1969. We just wrapped up all the horror movies, all the best horror movies that were released from 1960 to 1969. Stay tuned, because in the coming days, we're going to be covering the top movies, the best horror movies of the 70s, year by year. I'm Tony. Thanks for watching Yesteryear on TV. If you have any questions, leave them below, and I'll see you all in the next video.